Hi everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Very special guest, the new face of the talk, Osmond.
Hey, DJ.
Very nice to meet you.
Sing for me.
I'm not going to sing for you. I can't. How can I sing for you?
You're so funny.
It would just be embarrassed.
He's so cute, you guys. He's like, I did my research on you to figure out who you are.
I literally had never seen any of your stuff.
Well, you're not that age. How old are you?
I'm 26.
Oh, so I'm 2 years older than you.
2 years, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, 5. No.
Just depends on the day.
Okay, 3.
No, but for me, it was fascinating going back into that world because obviously I wasn't alive when that was happening.
Now there's a segue.
But like you were telling me off camera, like from 3 years old until now, 50 plus years you've been doing it.
Isn't that crazy?
It is wild.
Do you know, it's interesting because I listened to you talk, and when we started the original Donnie Marie shows, go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
But there were only 3 networks and maybe 1 independent,
Right.
and so anybody who had, we were kind of like the magazine shows, the whatever, if you had a movie, they did our show. But it was such an innocent era, and I remember people would come on and I'd have to do research on them because I didn't know who they were.
Right.
But people, I'm sure you don't know, but like people like Sammy Davis Jr., remember the Rat Pack? So Sammy taught me how to walk on a stage. And
wow.
I worked with Dean, I worked with Frank, I mean Bob Hope, all these people. I toured Saudi Arabia, did all the USO shows with
You've
him.
been everywhere, I feel like.
Kinda, but I remember doing my research going, who are these people? Because we worked with everybody, you know, the classic big ones and then the ones who were coming up. And we debuted Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Jessica Simpson, first time they ever sang on TV.
And how old were they when they were doing
They
that?
were just their first songs that
So
they
like
ever did.
teenagers
We
at
were
that
we were the show they did to debut it.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Isn't that crazy?
It really is.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that would have looked like with social media, like even your whole career, you know? Do you ever wonder about that?
You know, I wonder if it would be probably for, I don't know, I never did anything that would like scare anybody to death.
But even being like a young girl going through all that, you know.
Well, we had our head trips.
Yeah.
You know, there's always those head trips in this business. But I think the thing that's hard now is that everybody's showing all the beautiful, and sometimes it's not even that beautiful. And I think for the people that are watching, they go, you know, I want that life. And really, life is this.
Yeah.
It's the hard times and the good times. It's finding what you love, working hard in it, and feeling that self-worth from working, and knowing that there's going to be bumps in the road, you know?
Definitely, yeah. That's just the way it goes for everybody.
Yeah, it's life.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like people are much more open, though, about their lives. Like, you've been around celebrity culture a long time. There wasn't the same openness that there is now.
No.
When did that shift, do you think?
Probably with more shows where they got to talk instead of just the you know, creating an image.
Right.
But I've always been a talker.
Yeah.
And I've liked sharing things. I don't have a sister. I have 8 brothers, so I grew up around guys.
Right.
I'm kind of a guy chick, and women fascinated me because they would hold on to things longer than men. So I kind of let things go quickly.
I think that's a good way to go about it.
But I have 4 girls and I have 4 sons, and I don't know. It's been very interesting. I would say the way the world is now, things are reported immediately. Whereas before you could make mistakes and you could kind of hide it and whatever. I know that a bunch of people I knew did that. It's just kind of out there. You just kind of have to make your mistakes in front of everybody more.
Yeah, and that can be scary.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah, but you just lean into it, embrace it, and that's
Hey,
what you have
everybody
to do.
makes mistakes.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what would people be surprised about when it comes to your upbringing, your career? Because, like I said, you've been in front of the camera and in the limelight for a long time. What are some things that people really don't know about?
Well, that's why you have to watch the talk. I'm not going to give all my stuff away.
You're going to get into it there?
Well, you don't pull a chair up to that table and be wimpy.
No, you can't pull punches in that
No,
table.
you have to pretty much know who you are at the core, and kind of lived enough life that you can have an opinion. Everybody's different. It's a great group of women. We're all very different, but we all have great understanding and compassion for the different opinions that we have. You want a scoop?
Yeah, let's hear it.
We all like each other.
Oh, wow.
It's really scary.
There's no fighting. Don't you love those headlines where it's like this person
I
hating
know,
each
it's
other?
like, oh, please.
You're like, come on.
Why would you sign on to a show like that, you know?
That would make no sense.
It's the nicest set, the most lovely group of people. Believe me, I've been on a lot of sets.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it really, everybody is amazing.
And I'm sure you'll see some familiar faces of people coming through as well.
Oh yeah, Paula Abdul. I did the first week, and she just came through. She's stepping into Flamingo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and
nice little
RuPaul's
transition
going to be stepping in, and I just great people. Yeah.
And you cross paths with all these people throughout
sure.
the years. So like when I say Paula Abdul, what do you think about from the past?
Oh, I've known Paula for a long time.
How old were you guys when you first met?
I was a teenager, I think. Yeah. So. No, she's terrific, and she's doing better than she's ever done. She's so excited. She does this crazy jump. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's nuts. You're going to see the show.
So for you and your brother, how did you guys grow things out over the years? Because like we talked about, longevity is really difficult in this industry.
Yeah.
And you guys figured it out. So how did you sustain it and grow it out over the years?
You're funny. Do you know, I think a lot of it is just luck, and a lot of it's hard work. It's reinventing yourself. You can't sit back on your laurels and say, well, I had all these hits in the 70s. Who cares? You know, and then I went on and had hits in the 80s and 90s. I did country.
Yeah.
And from there, I wanted to keep challenging myself. I ended up doing Broadway. I learned to sing legit soprano. I actually sing multiple genres in our show in Vegas. I do Nessun Dorma, legit opera. And I have a new album coming out that we just did in Prague. And so hopefully with the talk, I'll have my weekends off and I can do some symphonic shows and talk about my 5 decades and sing many different styles of music.
I mean, opera is a whole different beast.
It's a different animal, yeah. I studied about 15 years before I ever sang it publicly, and there's just a passion in it. They're all, whether it's jazz or I do some rock in the show, because I'm a little bit country and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know if anybody knew that.
They don't know that. You don't.
I didn't
know
until this morning. I'm not gonna lie.
But just, you know, it's been an interesting career. I am the first celebrity Barbie doll.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Does that impress you?
Yes, absolutely. That's a cool thing. Why not?
You're so funny.
I think it's really cool.
I said that on Andy Cohen, and Andy's like, what?
That's a cool thing to have.
He's so cute. Yeah, he has some of our dolls on his set. I think the puppets or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a good one to have. I mean, regardless.
I love him.
So when it comes to your career, like you've done all these different things, who are people that have inspired you along the way?
Inspired me? So many. In lots of different ways. Like I said, I worked with what I call the great entertainers, that it wasn't their, it was their career, but it wasn't their life, and I learned that from them. That was their job, and this is their life, and they balanced it out really well, where I think sometimes you think, well, if my career isn't going well, then my life is shattered, and I don't believe that. I think you have to look at it as a job, any kind of job.
Right.
But Lucille Ball, I mean, she taught me lighting.
How so?
I was 16 and I watched her get ready, which was really interesting.
I bet,
yeah, it was a really amazing experience. And it took 3 hours. I kept walking by, you know, watching the transformation. And finally, she jumped out and she goes, "Did you see what you wanted to see?" And she said, "Men age gracefully in this business and women get old, so know your lighting." And then she spent another 2 hours teaching me all kinds of different things that women need to know versus men. And I'd go over to her house, she'd play, you know, Scrabble and things like that. She's just a very smart woman. Lots of people. Debbie Reynolds, I loved her. I was a child, though, when I worked with these amazing, you know, women. I worked with all of the original Charlie's Angels.
Oh, wow.
And
that must be cool.
I'm trying to find something your demo.
No, listen, just because my thing is like, even though I'm 26, there's stuff I know that normal 26-year-olds wouldn't know, and then other stuff that goes right over my head.
My children are that way.
Yeah.
You know, musically, they are so diverse. I mean, they can tell you big band music. They can tell you what was going on in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And
but then other stuff just goes right over their head.
Right. My daughter just went to see Love for her birthday. She turned 17 with a bunch. She goes, "Mom, they didn't even know the Beatles." I'm like, "Good girl. I'm glad you do."
You got to know the Beatles. I mean, you can't be missing on
One
that.
of her friends goes, "I think I know one of the songs." I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
I mean, it's pretty cool that you can go back on YouTube and just watch all your stuff, or go on Spotify and
crazy,
listen
huh?
down.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas before it had to be like on TV if you're doing an interview
It's
or something
true.
like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I tell everybody the big albums, I said those are very large CDs.
Well, records are back in now.
I know they are vinyl. They love the vinyl. So it's cool.
Is it weird for you to see stuff from when you were growing up in the 70s that makes its way back into 2019?
Everything does.
Yeah.
People are like,
cyclical
I
like
love
that.
your hair now. I'm like, look, just cut it to here, and that's how it was in the 70s. It comes back. You know what's old is new again. Hey,
Right.
I'm here.
You're right. Absolutely.
So, but it's an interesting, fun. I worked with ladies my age when I was very young, and I looked at them and I thought, wow, what an amazing career they had. That kind of stopped in the 70s.
Right.
Women kind of had shorter careers, and they didn't have those, like Singing in the Rain and all those great movies. Do you know that one?
No.
Oh my gosh! Seriously, I got to educate you.
Give me a couple to add to the
Yeah, they're
list.
classics.
Yeah.
I make my kids watch them all.
That's a good mom right there.
Well, I think it's important just to understand culture and where things come from,
And how we've progressed and
yes,
how we haven't
and how we
progressed with some
haven't
other
progressed.
things.
Exactly. It's just there's so much information out there that knowledge is power. And in this business, same thing applies.
Definitely. Even like women in country, for example, you see some of the strides that have been made, but also the difficulties that women still have in country.
Well, for example, I chose country as a young girl. I was 12 years old when I had my first I recorded my first #1 record, Paper Roses. And it went to #1 when I had just turned 13. But I did that because I loved Loretta Lynn. Loretta she came to the show and she performed with me. But all those great ladies, they were able to have their families and their children and still have long careers.
Right.
And really, you only found that in country music at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't happening in other
No,
places. And there was a huge stigma in other places.
Yeah.
Whereas in country, it was like, no, this is just the way that women
It's
are
the way
doing it.
life is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. There was no, oh, you have to be single and hot and whatever. And if you have anything else, you're dead in the career. And I'm like, that's just awful.
Yeah, that's not real life.
No.
No, definitely not. I think one of the things that you've been great on recently is mental health and that whole conversation, because that's an important thing to talk about.
Especially now more than ever.
Yeah.
You see the ramifications of drug use and things like that. And I think, I went through postpartum depression and I had a son who took
Michael?
his life.
Yeah.
And when you see that, I don't know that I would have truly understood my son if I had not have gone through that. And he struggled with it his whole life. It's one of those things that are really, so many people do. And people will just say, oh, snap out of it, or, come on, get tough. It's not that.
No.
And people that don't understand it, they need to become educated and also see the signs. Sometimes you miss things, and even going through them yourself. So the education is very important. What
did you learn about yourself during that time in your life?
Well, I was kind of really tough on myself growing up. I mean, I went through, I wrote a book about it. I've written several, but the first one was about that. And just growing up where my feelings weren't important, that I was kind of a machine that had to get things done. We were one-take Osmonds. And I'd get 350 pages of script to memorize in 2.5 days. And I'd have to do that, plus all my schoolwork, plus, take it in one take. And it was a lot of pressure. And so instead of saying, I really need to take a nap, I'd have to be perfect.
Right.
And so, and then, I had some bad stuff happen backstage, and all of that just kind of built up in me, and people telling me that I was too fat, that I had to, lose 10 pounds, and I was already, 103 pounds. Everybody with lollipop heads. And there was just a lot of trippy stuff in the 70s. And so, and now.
It's still going on now.
It's still going on.
Yeah.
But I just think I got to a point where all of those demons came back, and I just had to deal with it. And, I know you can give things over to God, but I think you have to know what you're giving.
Yeah.
And so I just had to take the time to understand it and to let the hurt go. Because if you don't, then those people that hurt you or those situations where you were abused will create your weather the rest of your life. And I say nobody creates my weather anymore.
Yeah,
I do.
I think it's part feeling it and dealing with it,
Yes.
and then letting it go.
You have
because that
to.
can eat at you your whole life.
It does. It
Yeah.
eats a hole in your soul. And I do believe that there's this fascinating lady that says that feelings buried alive never die. That she said if you don't get it here, you're going to get it physically.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to just forgive. People do things because either they were hurt or they didn't let it go. and so they're just manifesting it onto someone else. And at some point, the cycle has to break.
Right.
And it can be you if you really want it to break.
Absolutely. And having conversations like this are critical in order to take that next step. And I'm sure you'll be doing plenty of it.
And I promise you can get through anything with that attitude.
Yeah.
And it's not easy,
no,
but it's worth it. It's worth the work.
Definitely. It's better than hiding it and
It
just
is.
throwing it under the surface, because otherwise you'd never properly deal with it.
Well, see, that's the thing I love about the talk is we may be celebrities in our ways, but God doesn't care who you are in this life.
Definitely not.
He could care less. We're all people going through this human experience. And I learned that at a very young age. When I was like the Selena Gomez of my era, I would come home and I'd say, oh, I've got to look beautiful tomorrow. I'm going to bed now, Mother. And she'd say, really?
It's like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? And she says, you have dishes to do. And I said, I have to look good tomorrow. And she'd say, really? Okay, now you're going to clean toilets too. When are you going to understand that's your job and this is reality?
Yeah, at least your mom was grounding you.
She was so
awesome. Because it's very
awesome.
easy to just go off in a whole different
Oh,
stratosphere.
I'd come home and she'd say, we're going to learn to make bread tonight. And I'm like, when am I ever going to make bread? But I've taught all my kids how to. Yeah.
When did you get to the point where you just didn't care about being perfect? Like, when did that happen for you?
Children will do that to you. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think for me anyway, there's kind of a stigma being a child celebrity, which I was.
Right.
And some of them make the transition into adulthood beautifully, and some of them don't. And for me, the greatest thing that ever happened to me was being a mom and understanding that it's not all about you, it's about you helping them. And you better know who you are before you start raising. And even if you don't know who you are, they'll help you really quick.
I'm sure you can figure it out along the way.
Oh boy, let me tell you. That it's been the greatest thing in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Marie, really nice to meet you.
Oh, you're so cute.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Check Marie out on the talk. You won't be disappointed. That's Marie.
And check DJ out because, he's learning things about the past.
Trying to learn about what I missed out. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.